Hey, good afternoon and happy Wednesday to all of our viewers out there. My name is Captain Holly Weaver, and I am coming to you today from Overland Park, Kansas, from the Kansas City Medical Recruiting Station. And I am here a part of the 5th Medical Recruiting Battalion, My Army Medicine Story. So let's go ahead and bring on my co-host, Captain Parham.
Hey, good afternoon, Holly. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, Captain Parham?
Fantastic. Glad it's Wednesday. Already been a long week, but I'm looking forward to the weekend.
Absolutely. There's always a weekend around the corner, and I'm happy and thrilled that we're back. And we have an amazing guest today. It's been about a month since we've done a live stream, and we're kind of doing a little bit of a different shift today. We're talking about psychology. A lot of these live streams we focus on our medical corps and nurse corps, but our clinical psychologists are an integral part of the Army medicine team. We have a lot of different opportunities for psychologists or future psychologists to come in Army medicine.
No,
So let's get, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I absolutely agree. And I'm really excited that we were able to get this set up because the mental health factor and portion of the Army is super important. So I'm really excited.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and get this live stream started. I don't know about you, but every time I watch our intro and listen to it, kind of just puts me in a good mood.
I know I saw you dancing a little bit back there, and I love the name. I love the name on it. Epic intro maker with a magic dust.
It's epic. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on our special guest for today's live stream, Major Wesley Stokes.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Hey, sir.
Well, afternoon. I forget that you're in Kansas, so the day is already well on its way to completing, I guess.
Yeah. What time is it? What time is it there, sir? You said
so it's just 7:05 in the morning.
You're a champ.
So I have my coffee, and I'm good to go.
Perfect. So for those of you out there that are watching, Major Stokes is actually tuning in from Hawaii, where he is currently stationed. So we are very thankful that he was willing to hop on early this morning to do this live stream with us before he even makes it to work. So Major Stokes, would you like to just kind of introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, your story, maybe some of your duty stations and education, and then we'll kind of just jump right in to learning more about you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks, Holly. So I took a circuitous route. I went to college out of high school because that's what you do. You just go to college, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do or what direction to take. Ended up psychology has always interested me, obviously, but it was also kind of the path of least resistance. I enjoyed the classes. I did well. I graduated, and with a bachelor's degree in psychology, I got a job at Pizza Hut, which is the same job I had when I went to college. So I'm like, this doesn't seem like a very lucrative or influential path. So I started looking at master's programs, and finally got accepted. And with a master's degree in psychology, you can do a little bit more, but I wasn't quite satisfied. So I thought, why not be a psychologist? Not just a master's level provider. So I applied to a myriad of universities and was finally accepted. Having already obtained a bachelor's and a master's, I had accrued some financial debt. Student loans, they're very quick to give them to you, but it's kind of hard to pay those back sometimes. So in my graduate school program, there was a retired lieutenant colonel who was like, hey, have you ever thought about the Army? And I was like, no, not really. I don't see myself being a soldier. So he and I, we talked about it, had a few drinks. It seemed to make more sense. So I called the Kansas City Medical Recruiting Office, spoke with a Sergeant First Class Scott Sheridan, great guy. He came up. There was no pressure. He just kind of laid out what the options are. And honestly, the option looked pretty good. I mean, HPSP would give me a stipend. They would take care of all of my school bills, labs. I mean, everything. They would just, pretty much let me go to school. So I'm like, well, okay. I'm not sure what I'm getting into once I graduate, but this seems like a pretty okay deal to make. So I applied, and lo and behold, I got the scholarship, and just continued to go to school, do my thing. One of the benefits of HPSP, as I was telling Holly earlier, you're pretty much a shoo-in. It's not guaranteed, but you're pretty much a shoo-in for CPIP, which is the Clinical Psychology Internship Program, which at that time was at 5 different Army Medical Centers, Reed, DDMAC, Fort Lewis, which is Madigan, Tripler here in Hawaii, or BAMC, which is at Fort Sam, Houston. They've kind of shifted around where those sites are now. So Walter Reed no longer has a program, and DDMAC is also closed. DDMAC is Eisenhower Army Medical Center, which is in Augusta, Georgia. So I didn't have to. So those of you who are interested in psychology, it's not just going through school. You then have to do a pre-doctoral internship before you're conferred your degree. So my classmates were trepidatious because it's kind of hard to get those slots. They have to be APA accredited, and there's only so many of those. In fact, I remember looking at the statistics the year that I graduated, and there were actually more people coming out of clinical psychology programs than there were APA approved clinical internship sites. So my classmates, some of them were trepidatious. They had to travel all around the country, do a lot of interviews. I interviewed with a couple of the Army Medical Centers, and just kind of, I slept like a baby the night before the selection, and the next morning I was called and told that I was going to be an intern at Eisenhower. So I'm like, okay, cool. The internship was absolutely great. The rotations. I also elected to do the residency program, which follows. That's a follow-on here. That's not required for your degree as a clinical psychologist, but it is required in some states for licensure. So it really depends where you want to be licensed as a psychologist. And the nice thing about being a uniformed psychologist, you can be licensed in any one of the 50 states or any U.S. territory, and you are able to practice on federal reservations, or if they send people like Afghanistan, or I've been to the Republic of Georgia. I'm going to be going to Egypt early next year. So really wherever they need you, they credential you based on your license that's from whatever state that you're licensed in. So I finished residency. I did internship residency. Again, you do rotations, military-specific rotations, neuropsych rotations, family practice rotations. So you work with all kinds of different populations, which is awesome. Then my first student station was actually in Schweinfurt, Germany. So you get the opportunity to travel the world. Unfortunately, or fortunately in some respects, I was only in Germany 3 months before I deployed to Afghanistan. That was a 12-month deployment. It was hard work, but I'm glad for the experience. I feel it makes me a better officer. It makes me a better clinician, at least in a military setting. Not that I want to do that again, but it was a good experience professionally. After Afghanistan, I went back to Germany. At that time, my unit started the process of casing its colors, which means that they closed down the unit. So my brigade actually was on its way out of existence. I still just attached to the clinic. I saw the soldiers that were in my brigade, until most of them were gone. And then they started the process of actually closing the base I was on. At that point, my consultant called me and said, "Hey, you've got to move. Where do you want to go?" And I was like, "Well, can I stay in Europe?" And he's like, there's very limited spots. And most of them, if not all of them, are brigade positions. So the first job you have out of residency and or internship is usually a brigade slot. So they put you with combat arms, which coming from a hospital environment, I found that a little bit scary at first because I knew the hospital wasn't the real army, and they're sending me to an infantry brigade, which is the real army. Maybe I had seen Full Metal Jacket one too many times, but I had some concerns. As it turns out, that probably was the best job, all in all, that I had. Working with real soldiers. I wasn't getting yelled at by the sergeant who was banging on the trash can. If you guys have ever seen Full Metal Jacket,
you were kicking indoors, sir?
I was not kicking indoors. Deployed, I went on a few foot patrols, and the platoon leader offered me the opportunity, but I was like, no, that's not my wheelhouse. I'll hang back and provide cover if you need it. So the infantry, I really felt like I was allowed a lot of freedom to do my job. The officers, once you get to know them, and your job as a brigade psychologist is to really get out there and assess the needs. So I would go out and I would meet with the officers at various levels. I would meet with the non-commissioned officer chain of command as well, at kind of a higher level. Obviously, a brigade is about 4,600 people, so I couldn't go out and meet and greet every single enlisted soldier. But if you kind of make inroads with the chain of command, then they're going to let you know when there's a problem. So that's kind of the idea there. As a deployed psychologist, you really are a force multiplier. Your job is to assess and try to shore up the soldiers and help them to do their job, because they have a tough job. But after talking with my consultant, so as a psychologist, you have a consultant who just is kind of the point of contact for all of you, psychologists in the Army. There's just under 200 of us. I believe that last time I checked. But he was like, no, there's really nothing but brigade slots, and you have done that. So he wanted me to take a different job, get a different experience. So then I went to, I wanted to stay overseas. So I went to Korea, South Korea. In Korea, I was the IDPH for Area 3, which is the Installation Director of Psychological Health. It's just really means that you're the chief of the clinic and kind of the point of contact for psychological health on that particular post, or in this case, area.
Sir, have you spent any of your time in the continental U.S.?
Precious little. So that's another great thing about this job.
That's awesome.
You have a lot of freedom to kind of have say in where it is you go and what it is that you do. I've always really appreciated that. That kind of it helps you to feel supported, because you're helping to kind of make your own decisions as to what seems to be a good fit. Korea was a great job. It was much more administrative. So I went from an infantry brigade to being the top psychologist in a clinic. So it was much more administrative. I can tolerate administration to a certain extent, but a lot of meetings, We also had a lot of patients to see, so I probably overloaded myself a little bit with patient care. I did that for 2 years. And then from there, I did come back to the contiguous 48, Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And that was a unique experience in that my first year, so each time you move, usually it's a 3-year stay wherever you go. Korea was a little bit different. It's 1 year at a time. I volunteered to do the second year. I opted not to do a third year just because it was time to come back home. So South Carolina, my first year, I actually was the chief of the basic training clinic. So the Fort Jackson is a basic training post for enlisted. So I would meet the needs of the basic trainees. They had a lot of needs. A lot of young people away from home for the first time, scared out of their mind. I think their experience is a little more akin to the Full Metal Jacket, waking up with the banging of a trash can. So they would come in rattled, and really, again, our job is to assess and diagnose if indeed there is, something pathological at play, and then treat if necessary, or make recommendations to command if they don't seem to be a good fit. So that was a unique experience. So I did that for a year, and then the IDPH for Fort Jackson moved me over to the hospital, where I was the chief of 4 clinics. So CAFMAS, which is Child and Family Behavioral Health, Tele Behavioral Health, which is just, if we had too many patients that we could see that were unable to be seen in one of my 4 clinics, they would receive care over kind of this type of format with a provider at another duty installation. FAP, which is Family Advocacy Program, that's a job typically psychologists don't do. Usually that's a social worker's job. But again, we're qualified. Family advocacy is really kind of if there's some sort of a physical abuse or family strife. It could just be like family counseling, that sort of thing. It focuses more on just the family. So it's a tougher job, but it's necessary. And then I was also chief of the outpatient clinic at the hospital. So as you can see, in 3 duty jobs, I've been with the real Army doing infantry stuff. I was the top administrator for all of behavioral health, and then I was a basic trainee psychologist administrator for that clinic, and then I did family advocacy. I did children. So just the varied experience you can get in this job. Wow, it's just crazy. So from Fort Jackson, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, it sounds like you've had a lot of cool jobs. I personally am very jealous that you spent so much time in Germany, Korea, now you're in Hawaii. Like, I've been trying to go somewhere outside of the United States with the Army my entire career, and here I am in the middle of Kansas.
Brandon, let me make a phone call. I'll hook you up. Actually, I don't have that much power, so. Yeah, and if I'm going too fast, feel free to ask questions. I'm just very passionate about all the experiences.
I'd actually like to go back a little bit, sir, if you don't mind. So like we talked about to begin with, some of the programs, you came out of Kansas City, which, if I might be a little partial, but is the best company, the best, right? So it sounds like you had a great experience with your AMED recruiter. You got the information that you needed, and there was no pressure. There was just the information for you to make the best decision. And going into HPSP, which we talk about on the show all the time, because you have it for the Clin Psych, medical school, dental school, optometry, veterinary school. I'm missing one. But so that's absolutely great to hear. And you said something about good working at Pizza Hut, right?
Yeah.
I worked at Pizza Hut. I worked at Pizza Hut before I joined the Army.
Represent. So yeah, and one thing I appreciated, my medical recruiter, I still remember the phrase he used, because when I came in, good Lord, what was that? Like 2005 is probably when I talked to him, 2004. I still remember the phrase. He said, make no bones about it, you will get sand in your boots. So he was straight up that, hey, you're gonna deploy. We're deploying large numbers of people. We have two theaters that we're in currently. So he didn't try to do a bait and switch or anything. He was straight up. And that is something that I had to seriously consider, because, again, combat, wow, that's big. But again, I appreciate that honesty a lot. So.
No, that's definitely good. So I do have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
With your HPSP time, what was your experience like while you're in your doctorate program on HPSP, sir?
So I know with HPSP, if you don't take summer classes, you do some sort of shadowing opportunity where you go to a medical center and kind of do on-the-job type stuff. I always took summer classes. So I had this vague concept that I was in the Army. I was like telling people, hey, I'm like a lieutenant or something. I don't know what I am. But I didn't have to wear the uniform. I got to, really, I just went to school. I was a student. So I focused on my studies. I enjoyed my life. I didn't really consider, what my experience would be like, because I knew I couldn't guess at that. I mean, you can watch Saving Private Ryan and various movies, but that's Hollywood. And I don't know of any good movies yet that portray or follow a clinical psychologist in uniform in theater, although it's a great idea for a movie, I think. So yeah, I had the opportunity to get comfortable clinically with my develop my skill set as a psychologist, read all the textbooks on psychopathology and things like that. I didn't have to worry too much about being an officer yet. And really, I mean, that path, obviously, before you go to internship, you go to BOLIC, which is a basic officer leadership course. That was a good way to just get my feet wet. But really, it took me internship and halfway through residency before I really felt comfortable understanding, knowing how to present myself, carry myself as an officer. And the great thing is, if you do the CPIP or the clinical residency internship program, that's a part of what you're getting. You're getting mentorship from officers. They're teaching you, how to carry yourself, what the regulations are. Specifically just the medical aspect. I had a rotation as an intern and a rotation as a resident on just military evaluations, how to, we do evaluations for sniper school. We do evaluations. I'm actually going to call a lady today who's looked out for White House duty. She's going to be PSD for a politician that everyone's heard of. So again, these kinds of jobs add a lot of spice to kind of my day-to-day. And I really, it's not just patient after patient after patient after patient. You're doing these kinds of evaluations. I'm doing, TED Talks, whatever this is. So I can't imagine, being a civilian psychologist. I've done talks. I've been shot at twice. I don't care for that at all. But it's a unique experience. So.
And with you saying that, you never imagined yourself being in this position. That's.
I still remember I had a Army recruiter, just a regular recruiter, talking to me in high school, and he was very forceful. And I finally said, "Hey, look, I'll never be in the Army. Your slogan at that time, it was, we do more before 9 a.m. than most people do all day." And I remember kind of tongue in cheek saying, "That's not me. I don't get up before 9." And
except for today.
Except for today. Well, yeah. I was so young and stupid. I won't even say naive. I guess I thought I was going to find a job where I could sleep until 9 every day. But even as a civilian, you got to get up. You got to do things. If you're going to have something, if you're going to have a life, then you got to pay some dues. But yeah, and he didn't bother me again. And flash forward, whatever it is, 10 years. I'm thinking, the Army. Oh. And
Speaking
I
feel like we've all,
someone said famous last words after you said, "I'll never go in the Army." But now is a good time for us to bring up some comments from some of our viewers
on that.
So
the other famous last words are, "I'll never re-enlist. I'm going to do my 4 years and get out, and look at us all. We're here."
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Well, I was telling Holly, I was going to do, so you have a 3-year ADSO, active duty service obligation, with HPSP. I had every intention of just doing my 3 years, doing it well, paying back what I could, and then getting out. And
now how many years are you in?
Right. Over 13 now. So that's a testament to how much I enjoy the Army.
Yes, sir.
It's a great experience.
I'm totally there with you. I said I'll do my 4 years and get out, and here I am. Almost January will be 18 for me.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. All right. See, kindred.
I'm at 9, so not quite that level, but I was selected for major and in resident ILE, so I'm pretty much secured in that I'm staying in.
The resident ILE is a big plume. I did the distance learning. Oh, wow. Yeah. I'm not that disciplined.
So, Holly, did we get to start a joke about how you're going to outrank me, but I'm still your boss? Is that
that's
the
funny.
new joke?
Well, no, we'll just, you are a pretty good boss. I'll leave it at that. Okay. So here's a few comments that we had. Yeah, he's good to work with. We were coworkers before, and now he's my boss. I'm like, it's a good setup. You can't really ask for anything better than just having a good boss. So we have someone checking in saying Titans lead the way, where our battalion are the Titans. So thanks for tuning in. We have somebody watching from San Diego. So thank you for tuning in, and we have our recruiting team just agreeing that you have a lot of experience and lots of been a lot of locations overseas. Yes, the famous last words. And we have our recruiting station in Dallas checking in, and then we actually have a question from one of our viewers out there, and they would like to know, with a decrease in up-tempo, has there been a decrease in the acuity of mental health emergencies from your perspective?
Yeah, and I guess I would qualify my answer with, an emergency is somewhat subjective. If you're talking a medical emergency, as far as someone is actively decompensating in your clinic, they are hearing voices telling them to run around with a butcher knife or whatever. I don't know that I've seen any ebb or flow with that. I mean, that kind of severe pathology tends to be less contingent on a single kind of zeitgeist and more on a single factor. So if someone's spouse, for instance, says, "Hey, I'm going to leave you," that could propagate, if they're not taking care of themselves, physically, mentally, they don't have a good support system. If they have nothing to do with that information, then yeah, I mean, that could instigate some sort of, kind of impulsive suicidal type of thinking, or that could absolutely, if they're prone and genetically kind of susceptible to some sort of psychosis, that could trigger that. So I don't know that the zeitgeist really impacts the more severe cases that much. I do think that we tend to see more subclinical and less severe pathology in times of increased deployment. When I came in, obviously, again, the op tempo was just ridiculous. Just a couple of years before I came in, people were doing back-to-back deployments. Fortunately, I came in at kind of the tail end of all of that in 2011-12 when I deployed. We still had the numbers. I mean, Afghanistan, we had probably 150,000 soldiers deployed just to Afghanistan at that time. So, but the op tempo did slow down gradually, and the past 5 or 6 years, it has been much more just kind of a reasonable type of tempo wherein people aren't deploying back to back, and the zeitgeist has become much more amenable to people being able to take care of themselves. So zeitgeist is spirit of the time. So kind of what's going on in the world at that time is what's influencing kind of the behavior that we see, and the behavior actually does kind of lend itself, like if you are deploying back to back, it's really hard to take care of your family, take care of yourself. And what we end up with is people who just, go, and then break. So I do think probably some of the less severe pathology and some of the subclinical stuff, people are able to take care of themselves better. So we do see a little bit less of that. I hope that answered the question, maybe.
And it looks like their follow-on comment was hopefully with less combat deployments, less divorce, or severe mental health emergency. Yeah. I actually have sort of a follow-up question to that, a little bit different though. With COVID,
what was the zeitgeist that he was talking about? The things of the current issues,
right? So with COVID, affecting all of us the last year and a half or more, have you seen an increase, or just what is the behavioral health atmosphere been like? Is that really affecting our soldiers' mental health, and what can we do to help support our soldiers and our teammates that are struggling because of COVID and all of the different things that entails?
That's a really good question. So the bulk of my experience during COVID, in fact, let me just flash back to kind of my timeline. I was up to Fort Jackson when we kind of went off and discussed various other topics. After Fort Jackson, I went to the military academy at West Point. And that's where I was when COVID happened. I've only been in Hawaii a couple of months now. In fact, my household goods only came last week. But at West Point, it was a very big factor in the mental health of the cadets that I worked with. Largely, well, when COVID first happened, they were on spring break, and the word went out that they weren't to return from spring break. So I had cadets who had to kind of just stay in place it ended up being about 4 months before they came back. It's not always good to stay where you went to have spring break. They may have gone back to see their family, and maybe their family environment is something that 1 week is tolerable, but 4 months, maybe not so much. I had one cadet who stayed with his friend and his family, and even though he and his friend are really tight. He felt like he was an imposition on his friend's family, because there was no end in sight as to when they would be allowed to come back to West Point. So a lot of very unique situations. I reached out. We utilized MS Teams to reach out to cadets, or they would call and kind of ask for some guidance, how to help, what to do. And we would try to support or move them. The chain of command could do an exception to policy memo and let them move across the country from one family member to another. The kid that was staying with his friend, I ended up calling the Norfolk Naval Station, which is where he was located, like maybe 20 miles from Norfolk, and was able to get him housing on post. So, I mean, just the idea that you don't know when it's going to end, you have this kind of ambiguity. Maybe you're not staying someplace that's super healthy. But even when they all came back, so they came back in the fall, at that point, they were locked down to post. I mean, they weren't allowed to have walking privileges or off-post privileges. And again, there's legitimate reasons for that, because the spread of COVID was a big thing, and we were trying to mitigate the risk that they would get sick. So, I mean, I think the decision wasn't necessarily unjustified, but they're locked down. And these are 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old people who aren't used to being kind of sequestered and only allowed to kind of exist either in their classroom. And actually, early on that first semester, they would do classes via MS Teams in their barracks room. So really, they were living pretty much, every day, every week, every month, just in a room that was probably, I don't know, 15 by 10. So it was very trying for them, that kind of isolation. I would extrapolate. I mean, my experience has been that most people don't deal well with isolation. So that's kind of one of the prevailing kind of problems that runs through, I think, all soldiers, all cadets, all citizens. I mean, they are, there's no end in sight. Again, ambiguity. People don't deal well with ambiguity. But to also be confined, I think that is a hard nut. And John Q. Public, they were kind of confined. Restaurants were closed, and you couldn't, go to Walmart without a hazmat suit. So it's been very strenuous in that people haven't been able to kind of actually just live their life, normal routine. I mean, we all like to just, I like to just go to Best Buy and look at things I can't afford. So when you take away some of those options, it does increase stress. Absolutely.
Sir, so you're saying, Holly, you're on mute. Sir, so you're saying that 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds don't like to not go out.
Yeah, I know. Shocking, isn't it? Who would have thunk?
I know it's crazy, because my 15-year-old daughter just wants to sit in her room all day.
Yeah, even when they're not like confined to post, they were just given like walking privileges, which means they could walk outside of the gate. I don't know how many people are familiar with West Point, but there's a McDonald's and a Chipotle, and that's it. There's nothing else outside of the gate of West Point. So yeah, no, they were used to being able to get on the train, go to Manhattan, depending on their year group. But yeah, this was a big change for them, and I would assume that for soldiers as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
I know that you had a comment. I just want to throw this up there, that if anyone has questions regarding the Clinical Psychology HPSP, the Clinical Psychology Internship Program, we have Holly's contact information below. If you have any questions or anything that we can find out for you, please reach out to her. We'll get you to the right spot and get you the information you need.
The best way right now to reach out is just shoot me a text. Shoot me a text on my work phone. We are going through an email migration. My email has not migrated yet. It's having some issues, so they're going to do like a manual migration, but I just don't want that email to get lost, which it shouldn't, but just send me a text and then we'll go from there, and I will be happy to help you. But this is a perfect segue to just briefly discuss the opportunities and options for you to come into the Army as a clinical psychologist or to get your schooling paid for. So like Captain Parham said, that we have the HPSP program, which Major Stokes participated in, and it's where you would attend an accredited school, and you'll still get to go to school as a student, but that schooling is paid for, your books are paid for, and then you'll receive a stipend. So that's an amazing opportunity to finish your education and to not have to have a job, and you're also getting paid while you're doing that. So that's a great opportunity. You're on a reserve status during that time, but the Army doesn't really bother you because they know that you're focused on school. So we have 1 and 2 year scholarships for that. And I'm sorry, I'm looking over because I'm looking at my information. After that, we have this CPIP program, which is the 1 year clinical psychology that Major Stokes also participated in. And we have listed on our new program guide 5 locations: Womack Army Medical Center, which is Fort Bragg; Tripler in Hawaii; Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio; Madigan, which is in Washington; and Dwight D. Eisenhower, which is in Fort Gordon, Georgia.
Actually, I'm sorry,
the
Eisenhower program is no more.
No more. Okay.
Yeah.
So they haven't, we'll have to make a recommended change on the program guide, because that's our new program guide too.
You said the Eisenhower?
Yeah.
Okay,
so
perfect.
Last year graduated their last residency program, and they got rid of the internship program the year before that. So
okay,
that's
perfect.
That's great to know. We'll pass that along. So that's a great way for you to get those internship hours while getting paid, and you're not having this as much stress to go out and do interviews nationwide, like Major Stokes said that some of his classmates had to do. They were much more stressed out that they were getting the internship, where you were less stressed because you had already done the HPSP, you were already introduced to the Army, you kind of had that Army knowledge and felt more confident when you went to the boarding process. So that is an opportunity. And then we have the Clinical Psychology Postdoctoral Supervision Program, the CPRP, which you also did. And you said that kind of just increases your safety net and training and the mentorship.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a 1 year program, and they have that available. It says at 4 locations: Fort Bragg, Hawaii, San Antonio, and Madigan. Does that sound correct?
That sounds right, yeah.
Okay.
And so we spoke a little bit about this before the show, but you were talking a little bit about the difficulties on the civilian side of getting that internship or residency program, and you were able to do both with the Army. Can you speak a little bit on the differences and kind of what you were saying before the show?
Absolutely, and I'll even embellish a little bit. So you have internship, you have residency. They're both APA accredited, and really APA accreditation is what you have, especially for the internship. I actually have a friend who, upon completing the program and applying for internship, was unable to get an APA accredited internship. So she took a non-APA accredited internship instead. I don't know that she was ever able to get licensed. I believe she did eventually, but it's just very difficult to get state licensure if you don't have that APA accreditation. All of the Army programs are accredited, which is awesome. The fact of the matter is, I think I mentioned that the year that I graduated, I actually looked up the numbers, and there were more people graduate or looking to go to internship from a doctoral clinical psych program than there were internship programs accredited by the APA. So at the end of the day, somebody has to take the non-accredited programs. And again, it makes licensure hard. You have to double, triple prove, that your internship was, worthy for, a quality program, something that prepares you for licensure. It's a hot mess, is what my grandma would say. So don't negate the benefit of having that kind of almost guaranteed. They'll tell you it's not guaranteed, but they're going to make sure that you are accepted to an internship program, or they're going to continue to pay you as a captain and let you just sit on your rear end at a desk somewhere. So that's my way of thinking. The embellishment, not only do you have the opportunity to do internship and residency with the Army, but there's also a number of fellowships that you can apply for as a uniformed service member. Fellowships are extremely difficult to get in the civilian sector. So you can do a fellowship at, I believe it's still at Walter Reed, for forensic psychology. You can do a child fellowship at either Brooke or I believe TAMC here in Hawaii has a program as well. So basically what a fellowship is, it specializes you. So as a clinical psychologist, I'm kind of a general practitioner. I can do some child, I can do some forensic, but O.J. Simpson's defense team isn't going to hire me as a psychologist to evaluate anyone because I don't have that specialized training. The Army will give you specialized training that will make you extremely marketable on the outside. So
I'm glad you touched on that. That was actually one of my questions, because I think there's a lot of people out there that believe, you can't specialize, or it's kind of a dead end career piece. And so being able to touch on that is invaluable. So appreciate that. And one thing that you were talking about with speaking with the children brings up another question of mine. So you're not just seeing service members, you're also seeing family members, dependents, children,
retirees. Yeah.
Okay.
So again, the variety of what I see is just, it's mind blowing. Again, special duty evaluations, the populations that we see. We can work on the inpatient side if you would like to work with severely chronically mentally ill people. Again, that kind of goes into the matrix when you decide where you would like to PCS. For me, it's mostly been location, obviously, but also position. You can, I have a friend who writes policy at OTSG. I would rather, have all of my teeth pulled out one by one than work on policy at OTSG. So
somebody's got to do it, sir.
Yeah, I guess. A friend of mine at West Point, he was selected. He later turned it down, but he was selected to be the White House psychologist. So, I mean, you can have very interesting jobs, and they vary across the spectrum. So.
And one of the things on that also is, I think, a big misconception with the Army is you're going to go where the Army tells you to go, when to go, and you don't have much of a choice in that. And it sounds like in your experience, you've had a pretty good choice of where you want to go and being able to select those locations.
Yeah, absolutely. The worst case scenario historically, and again, they're kind of changing how it is they move people. There's something called AIM 2.0. But historically, it would be a conversation with your consultant, and they would kind of make a few suggestions. You would make a few requests, and then it would get narrowed down to maybe a couple of places, and you would choose between those two. So even today, I can't imagine, what would happen if they tried to send me to Fort Polk. I'm sure it's a lovely place, but there are just places that I would rather not go. And the reality is that unless I piss off somebody, I think I'm fine. I'll end up getting some latitude, and Hawaii ain't bad. So,
sir, Fort Polk is amazing if you love.
It's a wonderful.
If you
place.
love trees,
it's God's country. Yes.
So with the AIM 2.0 that you just brought up, I'll just briefly touch on it. So for those of you that are watching that don't know what that is, it's an interactive assignment marketplace, and it allows the officer to have to see all of the positions that are available instead of just what their consultant or their branch manager tells them is available. So it says every position that's out there. So it actually gives you a wider variety of things to see because it's just all the billets that are out there. So then you get to have all the career information, and then you can reach out to the incumbent and talk to them about what their experience was, and then you have an opportunity to actually talk to the unit and interview with them. So it gives the unit the buy-in, and then it also gives the officer the buy-in. So it's a pretty this is like the second or third iteration they've done with it, the second or third move cycle. So there's still, it's kind of like a process, but it's definitely a cool system because you have the ability to rank, 1 to 10 or however many. So you definitely have good buy-in still.
And I'll touch on that a little bit because I just went through it for the first time, and I think it's important, and it's a really good system. The fact that you can see all the positions out there, see what you want and what you like, talk to the unit, see what the job is kind of like, and also the interviewing process, because up to that point, I hadn't really done many interviews for the Army while I was in the Army. I mean, I joined when I was 18. So preparing you for the civilian side and being able to interview with somebody about a job, I think is really valuable.
Yeah, it's more aligned with how you have to compete for a job on the civilian side. But I think there's a lot of transparency in the process, which is always a good thing. Just to know all the opportunities that are out there. So that's just something else to consider when, people are thinking about joining the Army. We have this new system, and it's great to see all the opportunities that are out there. But do you have any final words for us? Any, like a story or, just any last final thoughts that you want to share with all of our viewers out there? We're kind of coming towards the end of the hour. So we want to hear your final words.
Wow. No pressure. Yeah. So again, just the ability to work with infantry and work in a hospital and work with basic trainees and work with cadets at the academy. And now I'm back in the hospital, and again, it's Hawaii, so to have that kind of freedom of mobility, to have that kind of breadth of experience, I think it enriches you not just as a clinician, but also just as a human being. I feel that having lived on 3 different continents has definitely helped to shape my worldview more than if I had just stayed in Missouri and been a clinical psychologist at one of the hospitals, one of the many fine hospitals that are located in Missouri. But But at the end of the day, I'm glad that I made the choice. I regret nothing. Maybe I would have done a few things differently, but I don't regret anything. So if anybody would like to talk to me, feel free to give them my contact information. I'm happy to share a well-balanced point of view. Because I don't know if I've come off as it's all rosy. It's not. There are things that tend to stick in my craw just a little bit. But all in all, the experience, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't do anything different than be an Army psychologist. Well, maybe Indiana Jones, but all in all, I really I appreciate what I've been given, and I hope that I'm worthy of the opportunities that have been given to me.
It looks like we have one final question from a Facebook user out there. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us. We have really enjoyed having you on the show today. So the question is, if you had to do it all over again, what job would you choose in the Army, and why would it be a Psych NP? And that, I don't know if you know, but I looked on my phone to see who that comment came from, and it's from a Major Paul McLemore.
Paul McLemore, yes.
Do you know him?
He's my boy. He's here at the hospital with me. So yeah, I was figuring either he or Major Freeze is also watching. I think I figured one of them would razz me a little bit. So,
it's Paul, and Paul and I were in Captain's Career Course together, and we had like a tight knit group of 7 or 8 of us that we did everything together, and he is a hoot.
He's an okay guy. Don't tell him I said that. And just the bonds, the friendships you make in the Army. It's not band of brothers all the time. Trust me, there are people that I prefer not to be around. But the relationships, the friendships that I have made, wow, awesome, totally awesome. So yeah, the people, the places, the experiences. I am making this sound awful, gosh darn rosy, but the totality of my experience has been very positive. Again, there are caveats. So if anybody wants to contact you and you want to send them my way, I'll share some of the other stuff. But
absolutely, we appreciate you volunteering to talk to our potential candidates.
Happy to help, and thank you for having me.
And sir, one last thing.
Yes.
Despite being in Germany and Korea and Hawaii, you still show your age a little bit with the Indiana Jones and the Best Buy. Yep. Are you going to make a Blockbuster comment next? Can we get one of those?
I still have my Blockbuster card, so
no, you don't.
I'm pretty sure I do. Honestly, I don't throw anything out. So
I love it.
Not that I'm a hoarder, but yeah, it's good memorabilia. But thanks for having me, guys. And if you need anything down the road, or any of your fine folks watching, just let me know.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you again.
All right.
If you could hang out backstage, sir, that would be fantastic.
Okay.
Thanks.
Cool.
Awesome. That was another amazing episode. I'm so glad that we were able to get it worked out with Major Stokes to come on with us today, especially with the time change. That was going to be a little bit tricky, getting him coordinated to get on here. So I'm really glad that we were able to get it. And I felt like it was a lot of great information. I definitely learned a lot of stuff. What about you?
Absolutely. I learned a lot about the clinical psychology path. So yes.
Awesome. Well, until next time, we need to get a few more of these set up. We definitely plan to do another one for HPSP. So that way we can provide new and updated information to all of the medical school hopefuls out there that are looking to get their medical school paid for. So until next time, it was a great time. Thanks, Brandon.
Have a good day.
Thanks, you.